I was absolutely hopeless where I didn't know if I was going to be able to get the steering wheel off. And you're looking for tips on what to do. I'm going to give you some of the tips and resources that I use. I also want to show you the kit that I winded up buying to make the job a lot easier. You can see that's where the T30 goes in. And it's kind of long, so it takes a minute for it to undo. It started to bend the actual mounting points where the J-hooks go onto the steering wheel. I was pulling so hard on the steering wheel that it started to break the actual points where... So at this point in time, I was like, I'm at the point of no return. I can't steer the car like this. I can't take it anywhere. I'm gonna have to figure something out. This guy was not letting go. Finally, after, I don't know how long, I was able to slip it off. People are coming across these same type of problems. You guys can figure it out as well. Because the steering wheel itself though, it definitely makes the car look that much better, and it is totally worth it once you get it done. Taking off the steering wheel on the C5 Corvette was one of the most tedious jobs I've done in quite some time. There was points during this install where I was absolutely hopeless, where I didn't know if I was going to be able to get the steering wheel off, what was going to happen, did I break the car? I had a lot of things going through my mind throughout this entire install. So hopefully in this video, if you're in the same predicament and you're looking for tips and what to do, I'm gonna give you some of the tips and resources that I used to get my steering wheel off, because I ultimately had to cut it off. So let's jump right into the video. It all comes down to this little thing right here. As you can see, this is the ring that is the bane of most people's existence for the C5 Corvettes. It essentially gets welded to this. So it pretty much gets stuck to this piece that's inside of the Corvette. From my understanding, this is the upper steering shaft. There is the whole big part that this attaches to that goes all the way down that's connected to the front wheels, but this is the upper part, which I was able to find out that this part you can actually just buy. And I bought actually 2 of them because at one point in time, I wasn't sure if I was gonna need to replace this inside of my car. I did see that some people, you can switch out a C6 one with the C5 to put a C6 steering wheel on, but it's a little bit of a more difficult job. You have to kind of take a lot more things apart to do it. It's not like that difficult, but that was the route I thought I was going to have to take. All because I could not get this thing off of mine. So a couple major things that I want to give you guys some tips for when it comes down to getting the screws out of the back of the steering wheel. What I did take a drill bit and I did enlarge the plastic opening on the back of the steering wheel. I wanted to make sure I had enough room to see where to physically put the T30 bit in to undo the airbag. Just enlarging the holes just slightly gave me that much more room, and it made that part a lot easier. I tried trying to get it in and try to just feel for where the bolt was on the back of the airbag, and without opening it up, I couldn't really tell. So I know a lot of other people say like that part gives them some issues, but just enlarging that hole just a little bit more definitely made things a little bit easier, and it definitely cut down on the time. I also want to show you the kit that I winded up buying to make the job a lot easier. I did buy this kit off of Amazon. I'll have a link down below. It just has all the attachments that you would need. And I got some T30 bolts as well. I did buy this power ratchet, which definitely helps out a lot. And then also using a swivel attachment did help. And then if you are curious, this is what the actual airbag bolt looks like. So you can see that's where the T30 goes in. And it's kind of long, so it takes a minute for it to undo. So doing that part wasn't too bad. The biggest issue that I came across was getting the steering wheel off. Now, I used the J-hook, like this, the GM steering wheel puller, just like normal. And I was pulling on my steering wheel. Now, I'll have the link down below, some of these old forum posts I found of other people coming across the same issues where it started to bend the actual mounting points where the J-hooks go onto the steering wheel. I was pulling so hard on the steering wheel that it started to break the actual points where puller attaches to the steering wheel. Even with trying to correct that, it was still pulling so hard and the steering wheel was not coming loose. Even with trying to get some PB blaster inside of the actual ring itself, I tried tapping on it with like a hammer. I have a rubber mallet I was using on both sides, and then I even started using like a normal hammer, try to really like shake it loose. Try to get a screwdriver in there and just try to like get some space to spray some PB blaster in it. I want to say I had PB blaster like sprayed in there for like 48, 72 hours, like nonstop, with the puller having tension on it as well. Nothing was breaking this thing loose. And I was even using like a power impact gun to try to like get enough pressure to just slowly torque it down and pull it. it was giving it so much force down that this part that's on the upper steering shaft was actually starting to get a little bit bent in, just because of it was pulling so much pressure on that, trying to pull the steering wheel off. My thing was just not coming off at all. It came down to the point where the steering wheel itself started to bend. I did see some other people that they were able to tap holes inside of the steering wheel and then use like a normal steering wheel puller to try to help pull it off. For me, I couldn't do that. I did see 2 other people online on YouTube, they wind up cutting their steering wheel off. They didn't really go into great detail. One person did, the other person just had it in like a short. If I can find those videos, I have those linked down below too. So it's kind of going along with what they did. And that's what I was thinking. I was like, if I could just cut the steering wheel off, it might make it easier that I can get just another puller just on like the metal part that's the centerpiece. So I winded up having to cut my steering wheel off because of it was already bent. The steering wheel itself was pretty much bent. We were just pulling on it so much. Once I was able to cut the steering wheel off and I got it down to pretty much just the main metal, I guess, middle piece, it still wasn't coming off. So at this point in time, I was like, I'm at the point of no return. I can't steer the car like this. I can't take it anywhere. I'm gonna have to figure something out. My thought process was, at this point in time, I can either cut it all off, try to get the, I guess, steering wheel off with like a hacksaw or whatever I had to use, and then maybe if this part was damaged, I could replace it. And yeah, I did see some people did do that. It definitely takes a little bit more work to do. It didn't seem like it would be that big of a deal, but at this point in time, I really didn't want to dive into that anymore. So what I had to wind up doing was pretty much cut the little ring off. Now I'm going to show you this ring. I want to show you how intense this thing was. So as you can see, this guy was not letting go. And the way that it goes on here, pretty much just slides on, but it slides on slightly more. And you can even tell, it's even hard to get this one over this thing too. There's no major reason why you would think that this would be holding on so tightly, but it just would not let go. So I had to break this open with a screwdriver and a hammer and a lot of force. So what I had to do was take an electric cutter with a metal cutting blade on it and try to be careful to not mess up the clock spring, not hit that, but also just slightly make a dent on the very top and try to cut down. Once I was able to do that and go all the way through it, take a screwdriver, drive it into it, take a little hammer, try to chip as much as I could and to separate as much as I could from the upper steering shaft. Once I was able to get it just a tad bit more separated, I was able to spray a ton of PB Blaster just inside of it. And then with that, I was able to take my hand and then take the screwdriver that I had on top of it, just kept driving it into it and just trying to just separate as much as I could. It just gave it a little bit more separation. I was finally, after I don't know how long, I was able to slip it off. That was the hardest and most pain in the butt thing I've ever had to do. When I had to cut the steering wheel off, I got metal chips all inside of the Corvette. I had to clean that out, vacuum it out, and still having to vacuum more and more stuff out. So it was a pain in the butt. It wasn't necessarily an easy process. I know I talked about it inside the install video. If you haven't seen the install video, you can check it out. It'll be linked down below. The steering wheel itself, it looks great, but this was a pain in the butt situation to be in. But luckily, I was able to find some information on the forums from like years and years ago. People were coming across these same type of problems. So that did help me out. I'm hoping that if someone else is in a similar situation, they can help you guys out as well. It is possible. If absolute worst comes to worst, you could buy that piece. I bought 2 of them from like the same seller, like a Corvette, I guess, reseller. I was able to buy this one and this other one. I think the C6 ones have this blue, if I'm not mistaken. They may not, to tell you the truth, but this is what both of them look like. I was so desperate. I was honestly looking on eBay of getting the whole steering wheel assembly with the steering wheel still attached to the whole like steering shaft. Because I was like, well, if worst comes to worst, I could take the one apart that I buy online just to make sure I could do it properly before I do it on the car to like swap that piece out. So there's a lot of different options that you can do. It was a pain in the butt, but I was able to get it done. So hopefully if you guys are in the same situation, you guys can figure it out as well. Because the steering wheel itself though, it definitely makes the car look that much better and it is totally worth it once you get it done. So check this video out. This is the actual install video. See you over there.